Coming up on WUFT's First at 5, gun safety back on the agenda in Alachua County. How this comes just weeks after a shooting left one teen paralyzed.
Plus, a major settlement could crack down on youth vaping in Florida. Why the Florida Attorney General says the settlement is just the beginning.
And preparing for a nearly year-long closure, what's next for the Florida Museum of Natural History? First at 5 starts right now.
First at 5, from the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications. You're watching WUFT News.
A major settlement could help crack down on the youth vaping epidemic in Florida. Florida Attorney General James Meyer announced a $79 million agreement with Juul Labs, accusing the company of targeting teens. Welcome to First at 5. I'm Kirsten Maselka.
And I'm Bernardo Montas. WUFT's Jesica Nitti is live in the studio to detail child tobacco use in Alachua County and the future of Juul in Florida.
The deal also placed strict limits on Juul's advertising in Florida. This settlement comes at a time where students across the state, including in Alachua County, are vaping in high numbers. The case alleged that Juul created a technology-focused vaping device that could be easily hidden from parents by their children. According to the Florida Youth Tobacco Survey, 1 in 4 children in Alachua County have at least tried to smoke. That number higher than the 20% average for the state. And back in 2023, WUFT reported the county was also above the state average. Juul has faced backlash for years, with leaders answering to Congress about accusations that they marketed their product towards children.
As a dad with little kids, it's still not good enough. So we're going to continue to fight back against this, this harmful advertising and ways to attract our kids.
As part of the agreement, Juul cannot target minors and must follow new restriction, including no model under 35 in ads, no cartoons or brand names, no product placement in TV or movies, and no billboard advertising. The Attorney General says their work to combat vaping is far from over, because the CDC says children use vapes more than any other tobacco product. Live in the studio, Jesica Nitti, WUFT News.
Right now, a wanted sex offender is now behind bars in Marion County after deputies say he attempted to leave the country. Deputies say Jose Luis Godinez Rodriguez was arrested last week while trying to board an early morning flight to Mexico at the Orlando International Airport. He faces several charges, including sexual battery of a minor. Detectives say they believe he may have victimized other children, and anyone with more information should call the Marion County Sheriff's Office.
This morning's thunderstorms brought some dangerous weather with them to the Orlando area. A tornado touched down along Interstate 4 in Lake Mary around 9:30 this morning. The tornado flipped a semi-truck with the driver and his dog inside the vehicle. Both the man and dog were okay after the accident. North Central Florida saw its fair share of strong storms today. UF forecaster Matthew Clark is live in the studio. Matthew, that cold front has moved out and warmer temperatures are on the way.
Yeah, that warm front that we're tracking right now, this cold front is starting to move its way off into the Atlantic, with most of these strong storms off into the Atlantic already. But this low pressure system and cold front brought some severe storms to parts of central Florida. Look at that, a lot of tornadoes flaring up as it moved its way across Lake County into Volusia County. And in this region north of Orlando, just in Sanford and Seminole County, very strong area of rotation right here. I'm going to show you how strong this tornado was. This correlation coefficient shows debris. All this pink is not debris. This bright ball right here shows debris. So trees, cars, other things being kicked up and thrown into the air. That's where this tornado was. It was given a preliminary EF2 rating with winds of 120 miles per hour. So a pretty strong tornado for Florida standards. Right now, all is cooled down overlooking our campus cam. Some blue skies overhead and some overhead clouds as well. I want to touch on these winds though. Look at that, 31 mile per hour gusts. I'm going to have more on this windy evening coming up and a midweek warm up. And unfortunately, some more weekend rain in a few minutes.
Gun violence prevention remains a top priority across Alachua County, and a new initiative from commissioners aims to keep children safe. This comes not long after the arrest of an armed robber who shot and permanently paralyzed a high school student in Oaks Mall just a few weeks ago. WUFT's Hayli Balgobin is live in the newsroom to tell us how much money is being placed behind this effort.
More than $500,000 in grants and aid will support the Children's Trust Fund agreement. The big three, Alachua County, the city of Gainesville, and Santa Fe College are joining forces to form a gun violence prevention alliance. Alachua County, the city of Gainesville, and Santa Fe College are on a mission to solve what commissioners refer to as a public health crisis: gun violence. According to the Gainesville Police Department, from January to November 2024, there were 7 homicide victims, showing a decrease in gun violence from previous years. 38 people were shot or injured. There were 123 reports of stolen firearms. Officials want those numbers at 0. The Children's Trust of Alachua County granted $500,000 to Alachua County and the city of Gainesville to pursue gun violence prevention activities. Half of the funds dedicated to grant-funded projects focus on gun violence prevention for youth. Additionally, it implements 2 youth steering committees to engage youth on important topics. Initiatives established months ago aimed at keeping youth in your area safe. Tomorrow, the Alachua County Commissions Board will hold their meeting to approve the agreement. If passed, gun violence prevention activities will be enacted. Live in the newsroom, Hayli Balgobin, WUFT News.
A 33-year-old man is dead after an early morning crash just north of Hawthorne. The man was driving down County Road 1469 around 5 a.m. when he drove through a stop sign and was hit by a semi-truck. Troopers say the investigation into this crash is still ongoing. In High Springs, a 67-year-old man is dead after he was hit by a car while riding his bike. Troopers say the man was crossing Highway 441 near the Beals outlet when he was hit by a sedan. He was taken to the hospital where he later died.
If you have time to spare, stop by an event in Gainesville promoting bike safety. It's one of many GPD will host this month. Pick up free bike lights, helmets, and fittings to make sure you're riding safely. Having the right equipment will lower your chances of getting seriously hurt. Today's event will run until 8 p.m. at Rails to Trails at Southeast 11th Street. You can find more information about this month's events on WUFT.org.
A new shuttle service offers free transportation to neighbors with physical disabilities in East Gainesville. The new mobile on-demand service picks up passengers who can't walk to an RTS bus or need additional support. Residents are picked up directly from their home and brought to their location at no cost. Rides can be scheduled up to 7 days in advance using the RTS Connect app or by calling RTS office. The service vehicles run on weekdays from 5:30 to 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 to 8 p.m. to the locations on your screen.
This week, Gainesville leaders will break ground on a new affordable housing complex in its southeast community. The city is working with the Hutchinson Foundation to build the complex called Jesse's Village. They're designating 22 apartment buildings for people who earn less than 65% of the county's median income. Gainesville will host a celebration free of charge tomorrow at 1 p.m. at 215 Southeast 21st Street.
Time is running out to visit the Florida Museum of Natural History in Gainesville. After this week, the museum closes its doors for more than a year. Visitors are getting an inside look at what's next for the museum while its public exhibits undergo a 15-month expansion project. Museum Fest invited visitors to pick up plants, look for fossils, and more. This is one of many pop-up events planned during the closure. The goal is to keep the museum's footprint in the community strong.
It's a challenging time for us to close. We've never done this before, so we want to ensure that we maintain that strong community bond while we're closed.
The museum's next event post-closure will be a spring plant sale on April 11th.
As President Donald Trump continues his on-again, off-again tariff threat with Canada, the Buy Canadian movement is going strong.
Absolutely. American-made wine and liquor are being pulled from the shelves as Canadians start boycotting American-made products. Coming up after the break, we take a look at the trade war heating up between the States and Canada and when you'll start seeing impacts at home. Stay with us.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
An on-again, off-again tariffs threat continues to rattle consumers on both sides of the border as the trade war between the U.S. and Canada heats up. NBC's Jay Gray reports as the Buy Canadian movement and boycott of all things American is sweeping the northern neighbor and ally.
Anxiety, frustration, even anger, brewing across Canada right now.
It's a very uneasy feeling.
With the tug of war over tariffs and President Trump suggesting the U.S. could absorb their country as a state.
It's having a huge ripple effect across the country. I mean, we're in limbo at the moment. It's awful. Not knowing which direction we're going.
A ripple growing into a wave of Canadian nationalism. Protest outside the U.S. Embassy. booing the American anthem, and as the trade war intensifies, buying things made at home or really anywhere but America.
Mexico.
Government-run stores pulling American wine and liquor from shelves. Comics even firing a shot in the trade war on Canadian TV.
American maple syrup?
Oh.
Okay, that costs way more. So does freedom.
The common thread here.
A lot of people feel betrayed by our closest ally.
Emma Cochran's wildly popular hoodie, shirts, and caps providing a direct response to the political rhetoric driving a wedge between the countries.
And this felt like a way that we could participate and just kind of say, we're going to stand up for Canada.
While back at the coffee shop, one of the most requested drinks, the Americano, has a new name.
And a friend came in and said, you know, with everything going on, you should change it to Canadiano.
Served with a side of Canadian resolve and Jay Gray, NBC News.
Florida voters will not decide if there will be term limits for county commissioners and school board members. If approved, the amendment would limit commissioners and school board members to 8-year terms. The legislation was set to go before the Senate Ethics and Elections Committee just hours ago, but was postponed. Bill sponsors expected the bill to pass with a majority.
This issue will pass on the ballot north of 70% because term limits are extremely popular with people. This is a good thing for the state of Florida. It's a good structural change that the voters need and want, and will help it get it to the governor's desk.
The measure could be brought up in a future Senate committee meeting. If lawmakers ultimately approve the plan, more than 60% of Florida voters would also have to agree.
More than $42 million in unclaimed property is back in the hands of Floridians this month, including nearly $500,000 for neighbors right here in Gainesville. Florida financial service leaders say about 1 in 5 Floridians have unclaimed property just waiting for them, with an average claim of about $825. In February, North Central Florida residents received more than $473,000 in unclaimed property. These can include dormant bank accounts, credit balances, and refunds. To search for unclaimed property, you can visit fltreasurehunt.gov.
It has been a windy day here in North Central Florida. I will have how long this wind is going to continue and a week warm-up coming up after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
I don't know about you all, but with how loud those thunderstorms were last night, I barely got any sleep.
Absolutely, and I'm sure you're not the only one. The thunder just kept going. It seemed to not stop.
Yeah, I love the sound of thunder personally, so I slept pretty peacefully. Haven't heard it in probably months, so it's cool to hear it. But waking up this morning, yeah, there were some thunderstorms outside. It's cleared up quite nicely actually right now. We have blue skies. It's very Florida-esque, waking up to those thunderstorms and gusty winds, and then in the afternoon, there's blue skies and sunshine. Gusty winds are still overhead, though. Temperature not too bad. Gonna have a pretty nice sunset tonight, but I want to talk about those winds. So we have this low pressure system that's going to move its way off into the Atlantic. Most of those storms have already moved their way off into the Atlantic as well, but those winds have stayed persistent because that low pressure system is off the coast of Georgia right now. Wind gusts 30 miles per hour here in Gainesville, 28 in Ocala. Look at that, 35 over in Daytona Beach. So it is pretty windy outside right now. Those winds are going to stay persistent throughout tonight and into tomorrow morning. Rainfall totals almost draw a line where most of that rain was. North of there, look at that, 5.5 inches in Mayo this weekend, and then Gainesville just shy of 1.5 inches here. So a lot of us saw a rainy weekend, not the greatest weekend to go outside, that was for sure. So those winds are going to start to die down, and that atmosphere is going to start to get cleared out as that low pressure system moves its way offshore. Winds are going to die down, and then tomorrow we are going to have a beautiful day. So temperatures right now for the rest of our area, 68 down in Ocala, 64 in Cedar Key, and then 59 up in Live Oak. Pretty mild afternoon for the most part. Those temperatures aren't going to drop too far into the lower 50s in the overnight hours. Sky is going to start to clear up as well, and then when we're waking up tomorrow morning, we're going to be in the upper 40s, 47 here in Gainesville. Look at that, 42 in Live Oak. That's almost freezing temperatures, just 10 shy of freezing temperatures. So a pretty chilly start tomorrow morning. 77 here in Gainesville tomorrow afternoon though, 77 down in Ocala. So we're going to be in the upper 70s tomorrow. Then waking up on our Wednesday morning, it's going to be a little bit warmer, but not too much warmer. And then we're almost heating up into the 80s by Wednesday afternoon. It's 79 in Gainesville, 79 in Ocala. Wouldn't be shocked to see 80 be broken somewhere in our state. Over the course of the next week though, we're going to be tracking a front that's eventually going to move its way into our area throughout the weekend. A low pressure system kind of stalls, bringing in some scattered showers and clouds into the southeast. but this is the low pressure system that we're going to be tracking as it heads into the weekend. I'll have more on that as it gets closer. This weekend though, look at that, 86 degrees on Saturday as a high. It's going to get pretty warm on Saturday, and then Sunday is going to be rainy again. So back-to-back Sundays where it's been pretty rainy, temperatures aren't going to vary too much, and then that front is going to drop us down into the upper 70s again. So not too much of a cold cool down, but those temperatures are going to vary throughout the parts of the week, and then that rain on Sunday we'll be tracking.
Both of Florida's basketball squads have had busy slates of action in the last few days. Coming up in sports, we're diving into a successful Senior Day tribute that has the Gators men's team in prime position for a deep run this March. Plus, Florida's women's squad has had its postseason fate hanging in the balance following their SEC tournament run in South Carolina. All that and more after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Happy Monday, everyone. I'm Jack Meyer. March means a lot of things, from blossoming flowers to changing your clocks. But for college hoops fans, it also marks perhaps the best time of year, March Madness. And this season, the Florida Gators look primed to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. The Gators wrapped up their most successful regular season in over a decade with an emphatic Senior Day victory this past Saturday. Senior guards Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, and Elijah Martin combined for 46 points to down the Ole Miss Rebels and bump Florida up to number 4 in the latest AP poll. But if Richard's words postgame are anything to go by, mock brackets and seeds are the last thing UF is worried about right now.
We don't really pay too much attention to that. We're just trying to go out there and win every game, and it's the start of a whole new season, so we're going to go out there and attack every game at a high level, no matter what seed we are.
Up next for the Gators is the SEC tournament this coming week. Florida has a double bye and will face either Missouri, Mississippi State, or LSU in the quarterfinals this Friday. Speaking of the SEC tournament, Florida women's basketball saw its Cinderella run in conference play come to an end this past Saturday against the number 9 LSU Tigers. Wooden Award finalist Anissa Morrow notched a 36-point and 14-rebound double-double to lead the Tigers past UF in a 101-87 victory. The loss marked a bittersweet end to perhaps one of the Gators' finest weeks of the season, as Florida took down the number 19 Alabama Crimson Tide on Thursday for their first-ranked win in 3 years. The Gators now await their fate in this year's WBIT, where they hope to secure a bid for a third straight season. Stepping off the hardwood for a moment, let's move on over to the gridiron as Florida Gators football is back. Kind of. Spring practice is in full swing as Gator fans near and far are starting to get an idea of what the 2025 campaign may have in store. Most of the main storylines so far this spring have centered around Florida's offense. While DJ Lagway still has yet to throw any passes as he continues to nurse a lingering shoulder ailment, his surrounding squad has still looked as promising as ever. With a barrage of new talent entering Florida's receiver room this offseason, UF co-offensive coordinator Russ Callaway has praised how the entire unit has meshed in recent weeks.
The cool thing about our group is no one really cares who gets the credit. We just want to win, and we got a really good group. Very fortunate. It's fun to come to work.
Florida's 2025 spring game is now just over a month away, as the Gators will take back to Ben Hill Griffin Field for their annual offseason showdown on April 12th. Moving down a few blocks to Condren Ballpark, Florida baseball remained at number 7 in this week's D1 baseball poll. This comes after a shaky start to the week against UCF, followed by a dominant weekend slate against Harvard. After a disheartening 13-3 loss against the Knights last Tuesday, the Gators roared back by making easy work of the Crimson in a 3-game series. UF run-ruled Harvard in all 3 contests, the first 2 of which resulted in shutouts, while the latter saw Florida scoring 22 runs. The Gators are now set for perhaps their biggest test to date tomorrow, as they'll travel to Tallahassee to take on the number 5 Florida State Seminoles at 6 p.m. Now we're going to take a step back into the world of high school track and field, where the Buchholz Bobcats made some history over the weekend. The Buchholz quartet of Tony Harmon, Gianna Rizzo, Jayla Douglas, and Chelsea Mooney set a new school record in the 4x200 this past weekend. The previous record had stood for over 30 years and was previously set in 1994, back when now Florida head coach Mike Holloway was at the helm for the Bobcats. Buchholz's women's team went on to finish 8th overall at the River City Relays meet in Jacksonville. And one final note, in the world of drag racing of all things, defending world champion Antron Brown took home the top fuel crown in this year's NHRA Gator Nationals. And while we're on the topic of high speeds here, Matthew, you mentioned we have some pretty gusty winds coming in this week, so just can you tell us what the rest of the week is going to look like for us?
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but it was pretty windy coming in here today, and those wind speeds are still pretty dominant. Those winds are going to start to die down as we head into tonight and into tomorrow morning. And we have a pretty nice week coming up ahead. We could see 80s by Friday, and then in the mid-80s by Saturday, and then we could see our next front system move in on Sunday. So the first half of the weekend is going to be pretty nice. This week is going to be pretty nice before we get some more rain on Sunday. 2 rains in a row. Not the greatest Sundays.
Thanks, Matthew, and thanks for joining us. We're back here tomorrow for another edition of First at 5.
But your North Central Florida news is always on at WUFT.org and on all our social media platforms. Have a good night.